Okay. So technical difficulties. So my mic I don't have anybody to check my mic, so I'm back. sorry for the breakdown there. So anyway, welcome to Hopeful Resistance. Mom is still out. She's still, she's got real life stuff that she's dealing with. So I'm still holding down the fort for the show. I am going to. So anyway, I lost my total train of thought because my audio was all jacked up and everything is screwed. So anyway, what I was talking about was like what I was talking about before I had to like cut it off and start everything back up. Essentially, every single time that I get on the show and I start talking about MAGA and I start talking about kind of who I ultimately, am like vehemently against, Charlie Kirk always comes up. And I think a lot of people may not understand why I don't have like why there's no love lost for me whenever it comes to people like Kirk. And I feel like it really comes down to I'll talk a lot about it once we get into things, but it's really just because Kirk is dishonest in the way that he approaches politics. He's dishonest because he glorifies an era in which there was there was a lot of disenfranchised people. I mean, America itself was doing great, and there were a lot of people that did have jobs, but he doesn't analyze any aspect of like why people had so much economic freedom. He doesn't analyze any aspect of why factories worked in the 1950s versus today. He doesn't do any analysis, or like he never wants to talk about those things. And you'll see in some of the debates that we talk about today that once those things get talked about, he tends to change the subject or deflect or move on to something else, because once you start trying to make him stand on business about these topics, he can't, because he has no idea realistically, or I would actually say he does know, because he knows that the second you start talking about it legitimately, he's just going to be like, oh, like he's just not going to have any retort or any like real like constructive pushback. So let's get into it. Now that we're past all the issues, I got everything figured out. So let me look at this. So this is a paper that's written by the AAUP. If you're not familiar with what that is, it's the American Association of University Professors. Essentially, what these guys are is just like a bunch of professors that basically form an organization, and it allows them to kind of push back on certain ideas, talking points that they may not want spread around schools. I am not endorsing that what they're saying. This is just information about Turning Point USA. I also want to take a look at some. I've got tons of other things that we'll talk about, because there's other aspects to this thing that I feel like people don't know about. So first and foremost, let's talk about what Turning Point USA is. So Turning Point USA is an organization that Charlie Kirk started in 2012. He was 18. They claim that their goal is to educate students about free markets and limited government, but mostly all he really does now is it's just all like pro-MAGA talking points. It's all far-right propaganda. It's all Christian nationalism. It has nothing to do with like actually keeping limited government or actually talking about the free market. It's almost none of those things at all. So what they like to do is like to go on college campuses. They love to. I mean, you've probably seen, if you're on the internet and you're engaged in politics on the internet, you've definitely seen Charlie Kirk content. And I say Charlie Kirk, but most of that is Turning Point USA. That's his organization, and that's kind of what his thing is. Okay, they have like a massive social media empire. They're big. They're huge on YouTube. They're big on X. They're big on TikTok. Yeah, I mean, they're just they are just like the right wing propaganda arm of like the right wing MAGA. Essentially, they also hold this huge conference called America First, which is really just like a big rally for like MAGA and Christian Nationalist, for them to come out and talk about how they're trying to save America and what's destroying America. And again, most of it is like complete horseshit nonsense that doesn't have any real basis in facts, and is, in my opinion, just completely immoral, because they're not actually trying to help Americans, like feed their families or do all the things that they claim they're trying to do. They're doing something else entirely. Okay, so a lot of the things that this is where we're going to get into what what the AAUP came out and said, because one of the things that they do with their disinformation tactics is they love to like frame colleges as like these pure liberal spaces, and how they have that, and like DI programs, they are like threats to America, and they're like it's all that hate and fear content that we talk about on the show a lot, where it's like that there is just like a constant push from the right to drive hate and fear, right? Because if it's not the liberal professors, then it's the immigrants, and if it's not the immigrants, then it's the DI programs. If it's not the DI programs, then it's gay people or trans people or whatever. They're just trying to drive basically their base and convert other people over to the way of thinking that like, oh yeah, you're like America is under siege by these people. Okay. They also push a lot of like false narratives almost entirely. The voter fraud thing, we talked about that. We've talked about that last episode. We talked about that in a bunch of other episodes, where they're basically just pushing like there's all these false voters. Most of America is actually right wing or MAGA, and they support Trump. And anybody that doesn't, I mean, it's all fake. It's all nonsense. Like that's all bullshit. Okay, they talk about how socialism is a threat. I disagree that there's just like this big socialist movement just like pushing through America right now. Okay, the Zandani winning in New York doesn't necessarily indicate the entirety of America, right? They're still very much classical liberal people, right, or even progressive liberal people that aren't like full blown communist socialist. But anytime it's not right wing Christian nationalism, Trump dick sucking contest, then clearly it's like crazy socialist communist, just trying to root out and destroy America. Okay. They also deny things like climate change. I'm not going to give away too much, but we might be having somebody on the show to talk about climate change and talk about the erosion of some of these agencies that are, we're basically around and like, have been helping manage and mitigate the damage that climate change can have. So hopefully we're going to have them on and we're going to be able to sit down and talk about this stuff. So, and all right, let's see. Try to do something else. Here we go. All right. So next thing. Yeah. So the goal of Turning Point USA has basically just been to groom young, mostly white male voters to become like loyal MAGA Christian nationalist voters. Okay, they're trying to like Trump has done, is they're trying to like normalize extremism. They're trying to make it okay to be like a crazy Christian nationalist. They're trying to make that like a normal, acceptable behavior. So, and we'll go through and look at some examples. I got tons of examples. But the next thing I wanted us to take a look at over here is I wanted us to take a look at with the AAUP. Now you have all that information. Let's talk about what these guys are doing. So they say, what is Turning Point USA? Turning Point USA is a right-wing nonprofit which the stated mission is to identify, educate, train, organize students to promote the principles or freedom of free markets and limited government. Again, that's bullshit. It's not what they're trying to do. Okay, Turning Point maintains the professor watch list. Okay, it claims that the purpose of the watch list is to identify professors who discriminate against conservative students and advance leftist propaganda in classroom. Okay, but it says right here, but most entries are not about instances of discrimination or propagandizing in the classroom. Many entries in the professor watch list concern faculty members' social media posts or scholarly publications. In a number of instances, listings have led to campaigns of online harassment against faculty members. This is what they're trying to do, right? Again, it's the normalization of that extremism that they're trying to really push through, right? They're trying to, Turning Point USA's entire goal is to, we're going to talk about, kind of what Kirk's goal is and where Kirk got the motivation for that goal and why Kirk pushes things like, don't go to college, it's a scam, you should go into the trades, we need to get back into the factory jobs, etc. Most of that stuff is because I'm not going to say that this is always true. It is because it's not, but it's because generally the more educated you are, the more moderate you become. And if he's trying to push, crazy right-wing Christian nationalist ideas, especially if he's trying to push them through at colleges, or even beyond, then then he wants to basically say, oh yeah, this is all waste of time, don't do it, go do these other jobs, so that way you hear the things I say and you just believe them, and there's just no critical thinking at all, right? There's no basis at all for some of the claims that they make. So okay, so Turning Point's, so right here, Turning Point's budget is over $8 million and is funded by donors, many of whom prefer to remain anonymous. However, founder Charlie Kirk admits that donors include those in the fossil fuel space, perhaps why Turning Point has organized campus opposition to calls for schools to divest from fossil fuel companies. Turning Point actively recruits and provides financial support to conservative candidates running for student government positions. At several institutions, Turning Point candidates have dropped out of races after it was discovered that they had violated university spending rules. Turning Point claims to have over 300 chapters on college campuses across the country, and Turning Point may have violated federal rules prohibiting 501c3 charities from engaging in political activity by aiding Republican political campaigns, according to reports in the Chronicle of Higher Education and the New Yorker. I actually pulled up that New Yorker article because it's definitely something. I mean, if they have all these sources in here, and if they're gonna make these claims, we're gonna go look at these claims. I also, this was another one. So this is the Center for Academic Freedom. And this is basically a lot of the same thing. So Turning Point USA was created by a partisan political student organization, which promotes many far-right political positions. Members affiliated with TPUSA have regularly engaged in racist, homophobic, and transphobic speech while on campus. TPUSA chartered buses to bring in students to the January 6th riot at the Capitol. And I have pretty strong opinions about J6. I do think, we've talked about it a number of times on the show. It's something that I'm like super, super duper angry and against. So that's really putting it lightly. Let me process through my words because I'm talking really fast. So January 6th pisses me off because it was more, it was treasonous. It was more than a riot, right? I mean, it was they literally stormed the Capitol and tried to prevent the certification of an election. And I think it's just one of those things where like Turning Point USA continues to promote that the 2020 election is stolen, continues to like push out all that disinformation, and it's all bullshit. Okay. Again, this talks about the same thing, that they were founded in 2012 with Charlie Kirk and with a starting donation from Republican mega donor Foster Friess. Okay. We're going to talk a little bit more about how did Kirk get connected to Friess and how is it that he was able to start Turning Point USA and push through all these things. And we're going to talk about that. Okay. In 2022, TPUSA had revenue of over 80.6 million. They are headquartered out of Phoenix, Arizona. And they have presence in over 3,500 campuses. Again, some of this is just corroborating like the stuff that we saw here. It's just like re-corroborated on this side. Okay. Again, talking about the media empire, talking about the professor watch list and how it's driven people to harassment. And then, so TPUSA also produces campus tours that bring Kirk and other personalities to the campus. Chapters can request speakers to the speaker bureau, including TPUSA Charlie Kirk. Okay, Pizzagate conspiratist Mike Posebek, I always say that guy's name wrong. Lib of TikTok founder Chaya Raichek, Jesus, and a number of MAGA Republicans. Again, they like to promote, oh, we're just trying to promote the free market. Oh, we're just trying to promote limited government. Meanwhile, they're promoting MAGA. And I mean, Trump has more executive orders on the books right now than any single president ever. So we want to talk about how we're trying to limit the government while simultaneously promoting MAGA ideals, because it's all bullshit. It's all lies. None of it's true, right? It's just made up nonsense. But they basically hide behind it, and even now publicly they're mask off. But whenever we get down to like the legalities of it all, they're able to kind of put that mask on and be like, no, we're not crazy Christian nationalism. When really that's exactly what it is. This is like right wing funneling into like the extremism of like MAGA and Christian nationalism, and that's exactly what this is all about. Okay, so they bring on MAGA Republicans, election denier Mike Lindell, Project Veritas founder James O'Keefe, anti-trans activist Riley Gaines, and dozens of other far-right politicians, media personalities, and online influencers. During spring 2024, TPUSA brought on Kyle Rittenhouse, who had killed 2 protesters in the 2020 protest in Kenosha, Wyoming, to several university campuses. People have mixed opinions about what happened with Rittenhouse. I think the kid's a fucking idiot who should not have been where he was, doing the things that he was doing. I also think that the verdict in his court case was correct. So, you know. So TPUSA chapters have been known to stage and then film controversies with students, faculty, and administrators, releasing edited videos of these interactions. A film team for the TPUSA online show Frontlines, for example, have confronted faculty on campus. In one case at ASU, they engaged in a violent altercation, leaving a faculty member bloodied. Students affiliated with TPUSA have been known to record classes without the knowledge or consent of their faculty. Which again is really probably more of a school policy violation than it is, I mean, pretty much any legal violation. So then they give some guidelines on how you can interact with them and how you can counter protest them, and et cetera, et cetera. And I mean, this is all good information for anybody that wants to have all this information. I can try and upload it, and then maybe throw some links in the description. But you can go and find this stuff. It's really easy. Like this one is responding to Turning Point USA and other provocative student groups on campus. And this one is literally just what is Turning Point USA. So now that we got a little bit of basis, let's talk about a couple things. Okay. First off, let's talk about Charlie Kirk. I talk about Charlie Kirk a lot, and it's because I think that Charlie Kirk, personally, with his Turning Point USA, is basically the greatest threat to our democracy going forward, right? Like right now, they are basically the reason that Trump is in office. And if once Trump goes, there should be no confusion that they're going to try and pick someone else to promote and to back, okay? And Kirk is 100,000% behind Trump no matter what. If you go spend any time watching his podcast, if you spend any time watching what he says on Twitter, if you spend any time watching his debates or things that he talks about, Kirk is like 100% behind Trump. And the reason for that is one, I think it's because he does in fact believe everything that he's saying, but I think it's even more than that. I think it's also because pretty much all of Kirk's rise to fame has been on the back of Trump's success. So every time Trump would say something and people would praise him, Kirk would parrot it. And it led to his platform and his company growing into the like massive propaganda media conglomerate that they are now. So no matter what, I say this all the time, Kirk is a ride or die bitch for Trump. No matter what Trump does, Kirk will back him. It's one of the reasons why we saw whenever the Epstein Files stuff was getting talked about, and Kirk and Turning Point USA, much like every other right-wing organization, was like full back on being like, hey, this fucking, these Epstein Files, we're going to find out who's in it. We're going to get it released. We're going to do something about it, et cetera, et cetera. And then once push came to shove, now suddenly, Kirk is like, oh, well, I'm not really going to talk about this anymore. And you can go and literally see the timeline on Twitter where he's all about it until he's not, because Trump's not, because Charlie Kirk is a ride or die bitch. So let's talk about Kirk. So a little bit of his background. So he dropped out of college whenever he was 18 and basically became a political celebrity. And one of the ways they did it was by getting really strong donors and basically to back him and help build Turning Point USA. He markets himself as a voice of young conservatives, but like, he's not really that, right? He is not a voice, or that's not actually not true. He is the voice of young conservatives, but only in the way, only because he's brought them around to his way of thinking. So it's not so much that he's thinking like all original ideas. He's just kind of parroting GOP MAGA talking points. And because you have like these young disenfranchised voters that he's kind of convinced, hey, MAGA are the people that's on your side. He's able to like pull them in, and then thus, I guess, does become the voice of young conservatives. But he's not promoting conservatism, right? He's promoting Christian nationalist ideas. Okay? So Charlie Kirk's all about the disinformation, okay? He continues to basically say that, that the 2020 election was stolen. We talked about this is why he came up in the last show. He claims that the U.S. is a Christian nation under attack. Okay, it's important to note this. All that does is just fuel culture war panic. It doesn't. It just dives into the hate and fear in people's minds. People think, or people are under some impression that we are a Christian nation, and we're not. We're just not. We were founded on religious freedom, and yes, that. But whenever I get so crazy because people be like, they were fleeing here so they could escape religious freedom. Yeah, from who? Who were the founding fathers? You know, who were the colonists that came and established the colonies in America? Who were they running from? Okay, they were running from the Church of England. They were running from the Catholic Church. They weren't. So it was Christians running from Christians, right? To act like this nation, it was wholly built on is in essence a Christian nation is absurd and ridiculous, and that narrative is what is allowing Kirk and Turning Point USA to kind of continue to push lies. So I talked about this earlier. They love to misrepresent history and economics, and they love to argue that democracy is unsafe without Christian values. Again, all bullshit. None of that is true. It's just a thing that they like to say because what they're trying to do is they're trying to get people scared so that way they can reshape their way of thinking and offer them solutions to problems that don't exist. We see Trump do this a lot. And Charlie and Turning Point USA, they do it as well. They basically make up a problem and they say, don't worry, we have the fix for it. Just follow me. We're going to fix it. And then when the problem is fixed, where there was never they never did anything because it was never actually a problem, but they can be like, see, we fixed it. We saved you. And then basically they get like a huge following of people. So again, they love to frame. Yeah, this is kind of what I was just talking about. They love to frame that democracy, like secular democracy, is basically anti-Christian, right? Like we should be a Christian nation, and we should be voting on Christian values, and we should only be allowing Christians to be in government, and that's how things should be. Okay, again, it's the Christian nationalist mindset. Okay. I just said it as my second note, which is suggest only a government rooted in Christian theology can preserve America, which is bullshit. America is built on the melting pot of ideas. It's built on all of us being like together, right, and in unison, and basically finding a way to coexist with each other. Even further beyond that is we've come this far because of the two-party system and everything else. And again, we've talked about some of this in the previous episodes. And there used to be a point in this nation where if I was a Democrat and you were a Republican, we could be in the same room with each other and we could generally agree on like core values, right? Like we would all like, and I think that's still the case in my experience is like in one-on-ones with people, it tends to be very easy to have like real actual tangible conversations with people. It seems though that we got away from that, and most of that was really just because whenever Trump came in, he was just loud and boisterous, and that led to basically like a surge in people that maybe shouldn't have been proud of their ideas and ideologies having like a huge resurgence within our country. Okay, I turned my fan on, so I hope it's not. I'm gonna keep an eye on it. I hope it's not too windy. Just got a little hot in here because I keep the door closed, so I'm not disturbing the rest of my house with my ranting. Okay. So yeah, again, talk about it. They love to use hate and fear. They basically are trying to convince young audiences that liberalism and godlessness will ultimately lead to tyranny. Again, this shit is fucking ironic as hell to me because we're literally watching the government be like a crazy authoritarian, like tyrannical government, and then simultaneously saying like, oh yeah, liberalism is what will cause that. This is that thing that I say a lot too, which is like every accusation is a confession. Every single time they make a claim that the Democrats are doing this and it's going to lead to this, it turns out that it was actually the right wing that was doing it, right? It was like the far right MAGA that was doing it. And so it's one of those things that just kind of amuses me a little bit. Okay. So let's get into, this is one of the articles that's quoted. in here. Okay, so this is a conservative nonprofit that seeks to transform college campuses, faces allegations of radical bias and illegal campaign activity. You can see this is a while ago. This was basically like Trump first term, because Turning Point USA is the reason that. Oh, excuse me. Let me get some water. No. Turning Point USA. It was a lot of what they did with their work on college campuses led to a lot of young voters switching over and supporting Trump. And so, I think it even says like on there, big government sucks. Hilarious. Fucking ironic and hilarious. That they are trying to promote this limited government, free market idealism, and that is not at all what they're actually promoting. It was all lies. It was all grift. I mean, it was literally just to pull people over and funnel them into extreme right wing. And so in doing so, that's why someone like Trump was able to come in. That's why people like Trump's cabinet now is just like so fucked. And I mean, and you know what? It's one thing. I get it. It's one thing to like say that, and it would be another thing entirely to be like, oh, what do you have proof? Yes. Okay. Look at the economy right now. Look at jobs right now. Look at what like I can just come on here and I get it. We could say, oh, well, that's because of your algorithm. Yeah, I'm sorry that my algorithm is full of like credible organizations that I'm not going to sit here and I do sit here and watch stuff like Newsmax or Fox News. The problem is that that once you go and you start digging into the information of what they're talking about, you come out the other side like, oh, so that was all bullshit. And so I'm not gonna like sit here and give any credence to the idea that like, well, the economy is doing good. It's literally not. You can go look at the numbers. Like unemployment is bad. The jobs report was bad. They literally fired someone in government because the jobs report didn't support what they were saying. Because this is what they love to do. This is what like this. And Kirk does this shit too. They love to just look at the take the facts, and if they don't support them, then they just love to create their own reality. Okay, because this shit happens all the time. Like, you go on like, oh, I'm so sorry. You like go on Twitter, and you fucking watch. You go and like read through like what the White House post or a Trump post, and they'll be like, oh yeah, Trump's approval rating is, and it even shows it on here, Trump's approval rating is 59%. And then you go and like actually look at the approval rating and it's not. They just lie. They just make, like, if reality, it contradicts whatever it is that they want to believe, then they just push out their own reality. And people that are like that have basically been funneled into this thought process through organizations like Turning Point USA, just gobble that shit up and take it at face value and ask no questions. And this is, again, why people like Kirk will say, you shouldn't go to college. It's a waste of your time. Because they don't want you educated. And you know what else I think is so fucking crazy ironic is that they'll sit there and say, oh, you shouldn't go to college. It's a waste of your time, while simultaneously like encouraging their own children to go to college. So it's just like, okay, that's crazy and stupid. All right. Oh, sorry. Let me stretch. Let's stretch it out. Oh, all right. Get a little loose here. So one of the things I want to do is I actually want to talk about. Again, I'm going to pull up some of the sources on some things that they're doing. But the other thing I wanted to point out is what was it that kind of influenced Kirk into this space? Okay. So it's important to note that there was a man who was like the behind the scenes person who basically like influenced Kirk and who kind of got him, involved in this sphere, and that man was someone by the name of William Thomas Montgomery, also known as Bill Montgomery. He also spoke at, if you don't know who Bill Montgomery is, where is he at? I think it's this guy, right? I don't think so. Where is he? I think that's him. He just looks weird. Or there, yeah, okay, same guy. So, Bill Montgomery, okay? So if you don't know who Bill Montgomery is he was a businessman out of Arizona. He was a Christian, super conservative, activist. Basically, what would have been considered a Christian nationalist, but this was back in 2012. Okay, he was Charlie Kirk's mentor, really, and he was the financial backer. It went even further than that because Bill Montgomery had such a he was so well known within the conservative community. He was basically able to give legitimacy and to conservative donors for Kirk's cause. Okay, so basically, Bill Montgomery is the reason that Kirk was able to get any backing at all. He was the reason that he got donors. He introduced him to like people within the Koch network and like other the Koch networks are like one of the big ones, right? But he also helped like shape Kirk's worldview, where he was kind of like, you need to turn politics into your religious mission, not just your civic duty, right? Like it's everybody's civic duty to be involved politically, right? To be politically informed whenever you show up at the polls, that you should know like what you're voting for and what the people you're voting for believe and why those things matter to you. And not everybody takes that civic duty as seriously, but that's not what Charlie Kirk and people like Bill Montgomery and Charlie Kirk like go even further, right, into this, like even deeper into the insanity of it, where they've turned it into like their religious mission, okay? Where they're basically trying to reinforce the narrative that America is a Christian nation, okay, and that it's in danger of total collapse, and that the only way to prevent that collapse is if the right takes power and we turn it into a Christian nation. That's the only way that we can save America. Okay, again, it's all bullshit. That's just what they say. Okay, so let's go back and we'll look at a couple things, and then we'll watch some videos. We'll do some reactions. But one of the things I want to talk about is examples of how Kirk promotes the culture war and how he promotes disinformation, and how Turning Point USA is basically just Christian nationalism. It has nothing to do with limited government. It has nothing to do with for the free market at all. It's purely about that religious mission that Kirk is on. Okay, so through its political arm, Turning Point Action, Turning Point USA launched a multi-million-dollar voter mobilization campaign in swing states. This was during the I think it was for the 2020 election, which was basically in swing states like Arizona, Georgia, and Wisconsin, and they continue So the campaign was trying to target patriotic voter registration, and basically that it sought to unseat election officials who rejected the 2020 fraud claims. Okay, because again, the 2020 election wasn't stolen, so they were trying to do like a big push to have some of those people taken out. Some of these are more recent. They had a campus hate speech controversy. So this was actually this year, in spring of this year, a Turning Point USA chapter at Texas A&M was implicated in a group chat containing racist, homophobic, and Islamophobic messages exchanged by members. The chapter quietly shut down the chat around Charlie Kirk's visit. And officials say Turning Point USA operates on over 3,500 campuses. We already saw that. And then which, again, highlights a troubling pattern, because this organization is just trying to promote Christian nationalism, and they've been doing it extremely well. Fortunately, and we talk about the hopeful resistance side of the show, because again, this is just me kind of talking to, so the information's out there, because one of the things that I always think is really important when you're trying to build an active resistance is to have very clear, knowledgeable understanding of the people that stand in opposition to you. And I don't want to call them enemies, because I don't think that, I don't know that I would say that that they would be my enemy, but only because they are actively seeking to dismantle America as it stands. They're trying to turn it into a Christian theocracy. And that is something that I'm against. I'm against it being a Christian theocracy. I would be against it being an Islamic theocracy. There's no place in the America that I dream of, and the America that I fought for. There's no world in which we are a religious, like an overtly religious nation. We can have those things to influence us. I certainly don't think it shouldn't be like no Christian should be in office. But I think if we're trying to turn the government into a Christian government, that's fucking not okay, and we should not be doing that. Okay. So yeah, again, Christian nationalism at rallies is all Turning Point USA. Yes. Okay. Oh. Yeah. So right here, so at Turning Point USA organized rally in Georgia, Donald Trump, speaking at the event, labeled the election a moral and religious battle. Turning Point USA figures framed the opposition as antagonistic to Christian values, which is bullshit. Okay. And I want to talk about why that's bullshit for a couple reasons. One, what are Christian values? Okay. If you ask Charlie Kirk this, he'll say, "Oh yeah, it's for women to be in the home and for." We're gonna completely gloss over the fact that like Christian values were also founded in things like love thy neighbor. We're gonna gloss over the fact that Christian values were grounded in things like love the sinner, hate the sin. Like there's so many things that are taught in the Bible about how to coexist, that people like Charlie Kirk or Michael Knowles or pretty much any of those like these far right hyper religious people, they tend to basically like look at anyone that doesn't 100% agree with them as like petulant children that they have to that they basically have to like admonish, and that they have to punish them for wrongdoing. I think it turns them into egotistical bastards, and I think it's a problem for more than a couple reasons. I mean, it's just one of those things that it's hypocritical is I guess what I'm trying to get to, right? They like to talk about how they're promoting Christian ideals while simultaneously being hateful. They like to say, we promote Christian ideals, well at the same time, that just being hateful. And so, which is not, I mean, again, those aren't the teachings of Jesus. Those aren't the teachings of Paul. Like these, I'm not a Christian. I just know the scripture, and there's a lot more love taught than hate. And these people aren't promoting love. They're promoting hate and fear. And most of the time, they're not even doing it. I'm not going to say because I'm not going to say they're not even doing it out of belief, because maybe they do. I don't know, right? You can't know the intent, but I can say that they're finding a lot of money and success doing it. So seems to me like the motivation is not about doing what Christians do. That is instead about like self-promotion and like self congratulating and like grandstanding on on their morals, and sitting up on their high horse and looking down on the rest of us. Okay. So let's see what else. Oh yeah, so Turning Point USA is also anti-vax. They really love to promote ads stating that the government has no right to force you to inject yourself with an experimental vaccine. And they claimed that Biden was sending goons door to door to vaccinate people, which was bullshit. That was never happening. They weren't going door to door to vaccinate people. There is actually, it's so funny because there is actually precedence for, expecting people to get vaccinated. And I'll put it to you like this: to say that they have no right to force you, you're right. Nobody's going to force you. Where I think the confusion is that people want to be able to make their own choices and not have to live with the consequence of that choice. So nobody was saying, "Oh, you have to get vaccinated." However, if you don't, you might lose your job. If you don't, you might not be able to put your kid in school. If you don't, there's consequences to your actions, and people were like, "Oh, you're threatening me with financial ruin." I mean, if your livelihood is dependent on you getting a vaccine, why don't you, instead of being a fucking, instead of being a big baby about it, why don't you go either A, go get the vaccine, or B, go find a job that's going to let you work without it? Why, it's not threatening you with financial ruin unless you're just going to actively choose to resist this. And then even more than that, none of that even happened anyway, right? There was all this worry and fear about, people about, oh, I'm going to lose my job. But then people didn't lose their jobs over it. So it was all moot. Okay. Let's see. Oh, so this is another one, the purposely evangelical framing. So at college events like Texas A&M, Kirk has invoked Christianity as essential for saving America, portraying America's fading religiosity, anyway, as a national emergency. Basically saying that, again, it's that hate and fear message spread where basically they're saying like, oh, if we don't stay a Christian nation, then America's going to fall apart. All bullshit. All bullshit. None of that is true. All right. So let's go take a look. I'm so sorry. I keep yawning. I just need to probably drink more water. Normally water solves my problem. All right. So let's go down some other things. I already talked about Bill Montgomery. Okay. Let's talk about why all this matters. Okay. So, Turning Point USA's evolution, okay, it went from a student outreach program to a multi-million-dollar election machinery and cultural influence network. Okay, TPUSA shows how disinformation evolves in strategy and scale. Christian nationalism as shield and weapon. So Kirk pitches democracy as failing the Christian ethos, making authoritarian religious ideology seem like the only defense. Okay, this is where I talk about why things like Turning Point USA are such a great threat to democracy, because they'll basically, this is what Christian nationalism pushes, like all the way. They push the idea that we don't need elections. Okay, we need somebody. We need somebody in office like Trump, who is like, they're Christian and they're going to save America. Okay, they think that everything should be authoritarian. Okay, yeah, and then democratic erosion at play. So these misinformation, disinformation campaigns wear down democratic norms, promote authoritarian impulses, and reposition religion as a justification for political power. That's why I said like shit like this is really, really disgusting, and it promotes. I mean, it's just very anti-American, and that's what makes it so insane to me. So, okay, now that we've got a basis on which the ground is built, and we have an understanding of who Charlie Kirk is and who Turning Point USA is, and where the motivations for these things happen, and understanding things like Christian nationalism, and we're looking at how a lot of this works. We're gonna go watch a couple of videos. Two of them you've probably seen going around. I know I've watched them, but I want to address some points in them. And then one of them I don't think I saw whenever it came out, but it's. So I'll pull these up. So the first one, everybody's seen this one. Maybe I think we'll watch this one last. This is very cathartic. Basically, this, I can't remember her name. She's been doing the rounds in a lot of the political podcasts. She's very smart, intelligent, well spoken, and she's a professional debater. She is phenomenal in the way that she handles Kirk and is like forcing him to constantly switch topics, because every single time he tries to bring up a new topic, she's able to shift gears and adjust to his new change and have an answer to his question, and kind of force him to talk about the parts of his ideology that aren't as pretty and glorified and magical as Kirk tries to sell. But the one that actually really gets me is this one. So this is where they were at Oxford, and this young man comes out, and him and Kirk, they sit and they talk for a moment. And so we're just gonna take a look at this. Let me make this big screen here, and let's give it a listen. Wait, I don't think. Hang on. There we go. I don't know how to solve this. Hang on. Add source. Application audio output. And we're going to have it capture Chrome. And that should be good, right? No? Let's see. Let's try this. Let's go window capture. Just turn this on for now. Okay.
Earlier about the generation of lost boys, you likened them to the Peter Pan movie.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So when we're talking about Red Pill Media as being a large influence, and I wanted to define that. It's a reference to the Matrix, in which a lot of these media heads
I'm familiar with that.
talk about unplugging yourself, and it's about waking up to the realization that there is an active attack on masculinity, that men's rights need to be, that men are being oppressed in a way, and that men's rights need to be advocated for. And many people have attributed the Red Pill Media to rise in this almost generation of lost boys.
See, this is something I always find interesting. And I'm sorry to stop us so quickly. I always find it is so interesting how much Christian nationalism will ride on the backs of the red pill ideology. Whenever the red pill ideology isn't it will promote this idea that you need to go find yourself it will I'm getting lost. It will simultaneously promote that you need to get bitches and bang a lot of women and make a lot of money and live like this player, bachelor, homeboy, or fuckboy lifestyle, while simultaneously talking about how you need to find the right woman and you need to marry her and you need to settle down, but don't marry her because she'll take all your money, and don't have any kids with her because then you'll have to pay her child support, get a vasectomy. Like red pill ideology is so broken up, and they'll say, well, it's because we're all no, your ideology is just fractured because it's not founded in anything other than hating women and viewing women as objects and viewing women and viewing and looking at them as in no other way. Okay, it's basically just it's if anything, it's completely against Christian morals and standards. But then these people like Charlie Kirk will still back it.
And I wanted to get your opinion on do you see this generation of lost boys as a failure of say masculinity, or are there potential other factors, economic, social factors, such as the death of the American dream, increasing costs of living in America, increased costs of education? Are there any other reasons as to why this generation of lost boys might exist, or do you basically attribute it to
I acknowledge all of that, of course. I mean, one of them, it's a very good faith question, and thank you. In America, we made a stupid decision in the 1970s, 80s, and 90s to shut down our factories in the middle part of the country and basically disenfranchise and deindustrialize tens of millions of working class men and tell them to go move to the cities and learn to code. I said this in the previous Q.
So this is the part I wanted to. I know it's really early in his answer, but this is gonna really hit on something that I talked about earlier that Kirk does constantly. He's gonna sit here. He wants to sit here and talk about how actually, hang on, let me finish.
But I can again, which is that a family used to be able to be supported on a single income of 35 weeks of labor a year. Now it takes upwards of 60 weeks of labor a year. However, given all the economic and social and all those factors, the largest of all of them is the cultural and the educational.
So you notice how he deflects away from it. Okay, so Kirk is trying to argue that we used to be able to get away with working 35 weeks. He used to be able to just get away with working at a factory job, and then we shut down our factories and told people to go code. And it fails. It's a failure to acknowledge why was it that if I was an adult male, that I could go and get a factory job, and that factory job would support my family on 35 weeks of work. Why? And he'll never acknowledge it. But the reason why we were able to do that was because of unions. Was because at the time, workers had a collective bargaining power. You still see it today, right? I'm not going to say exactly where I work, but I know for a fact that the Lockheed Martin facility here in Fort Worth, the men and women that work on the factory floor, they're all a part of a massive union, and that has huge bargaining power, and they're able to basically collectively bargain to have like fair wages and fair and like and fair work hours and all of these things, and all that was pretty commonplace back then. And with the union busting and everything else, we that's all gone away, right? It's all gone away, or it's moved overseas. Okay, so I think it's ridiculous how much Kirk likes to basically rewrite history, or spread disinformation about, well, this is why. We can keep watching this. I do want to say that I'm not satisfied with the answer that this young man provides. I know that he's like trying to come up here. And Charlie Kirk, I'm gonna say he's a seasoned debater, not necessarily a skilled one, because once you start seeing him going toe to toe with like skilled debaters, he tends to fall flat. We'll see that
has infantilized men and hyper feminized them in the messaging, in the outreach, and in the treatment. And so I can give you specific examples.
In what way has the...
And this is the thing. This shit always drives me crazy. Okay, he says, "Oh, the modern era has feminized men." Really? Because it seems to me like the only feminine men that I see are conservative men who are always bitching and complaining that women they're complaining about one thing or another. Like Kirk himself, he's such an emotional character, right? He's just such a little pussy and about everything, and all the time it's really, really frustrating to sit and watch these guys basically be able to sit like with a foot on either line, or a foot on either side, where they're basically able to say, well, simultaneously say like, oh yeah, men are feminine, and in their mind that makes them weak. It makes them, it's eroding our society and all this, and then simultaneously with their, I guess I talked about two sides of their mouth, but instead of either side, anyway. And then on the flip side, then they're able to like bitch endlessly about how like, oh, like women, modern women they're impossible to date. Like, it's just like, okay, like you guys, it's so transparent. It's so frustrating. It's stupid.
I mean, every possible way, from the hypermedication of young men, from in the core curriculum in America, we learn about toxic masculinity from ages 8 in public schools in California and in New York. We never talk about toxic femininity. Do you agree that there's toxic femininity as well?
This talking point is so fucking stupid.
I mean, I think it's an unfair double standard.
Yes.
Why? Well, how can femininity not be toxic if masculinity can?
I'm not saying they can't be.
Do we teach kids about toxic femininity in our schools? No, tell me yes or no.
I mean, I think that they come from two very different places. I think toxic masculinity comes from a level of misogyny, where I think toxic femininity often comes from a reaction to a misogynistic system which fundamentally oppresses and systematically oppresses women. And I'm not saying that toxic femininity is a good thing, but I'm saying it's a much more understood and valid reaction to a system of oppression versus toxic masculinity, which oppresses.
I think this guy like hits the nail on the head. Where do these two different types of toxicity stem from? And again, I pre-watched. I didn't pre-watch intentionally. I didn't pre-watch for the show. I watched this already, and so that's why I wanted to pull it up. The reason why this is so it's so well spoken, he really frames it extremely well, is because that's exactly what it is, right? Toxic masculinity is basically 90% of the time it's based on misogyny. And whenever we're talking about toxic masculinity, okay, we're talking about mostly we're talking about the mistreatment of women, okay? If we want to talk about the other aspects of what people would consider toxic, I don't know that. I'm sure that there are lines in which I would disagree that that's toxic. Okay. I think that one of the things that I like, and you see this in the Marines sometimes, where people get like super hyper competitive, right? Because the Marine Corps by its nature is highly competitive, to the point where they basically become selfish. And it drives them to actively actively seek to harm their fellow Marines, right? Whether it's in their career or whether it's physically, it drives them to just like this highly competitive mindset that is toxic. And I would argue that is in itself is toxic masculinity. That doesn't mean it's not okay to be competitive. It means it's probably, what it really means is that it's not okay to be competitive at the cost of other people around you, which I think is a pretty valid standard for what is or isn't toxic. Now, some people might say, well, being competitive is toxic. I don't agree. I think it's good to be competitive. I think that being, as long as you can be friendly in your competition, and you can even try to actively help the people that you're competing against to lift them up, so that way they push you to be better, right? That is healthy competition. Okay, like if I'm competing, like I train Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I also teach Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and I'm trying to always actively teach people how to one, know the things I know and how to counter the things that I know, so that way it pushes me to be even better. So that this is a way in which being competitive is not toxic. What Kirk is trying to say is like, oh, they're trying to say that all masculinity is toxic. Nobody's fucking saying that. That's the disinformation bullshit. No one is. I promise you that in California, they're not teaching boys that to be masculine is toxic. They're teaching them the traits in which it's not okay to view women as weaker. It's not okay to be so hyper competitive that you're basically like you're fucking over the other people around you, right? It's there's tons of those are just two key examples, but it's not okay to be hyper aggressive. Okay, is it okay to be aggressive? Yeah, sometimes it's okay to be a little aggressive. It depends on what the situation dictates, but I promise you that that in California they're not teaching them that don't be aggressive ever. They're teaching them that, hey, maybe getting drunk at a bar and picking a fight with a guy because you think that he quote unquote disrespected you in some way is probably not a good way to behave in society. And so again, it's all disinformation, it's all lying, it's all bullshit, just to try and basically pull people over and funnel them into the right wing, into the right wing extremism.
Okay.
Yeah, see, okay. So, they start to get a little more into it. We can.
Even if I grant you that, are they teaching toxic? Is that term ever been used in a school that you know of?
What term?
Toxic femininity?
No, it's not.
Oh, that's weird. So
See,
only one sex.
It's so fucking disingenuous. No, we're not going to teach toxic femininity, because toxic femininity is built on the basis of, if I'm treated like shit, then I respond to the way that I'm being treated justly, right? If somebody treats me like shit, I'm well within my bounds to respond to that by treating them like shit. And he tries to gloss over that as being like, well, they're not teaching that in schools. That's because we're trying to move away from the system in which women have been disenfranchised, which is a system that Charlie Kirk is trying to basically promote back. And we're going to see that in another episode. Because in Charlie Kirk's mind, the only thing women should be doing is being housewives. He'll talk about this, oh, children are so rewarding. I'll say this from a father's perspective. I agree. I think kids are great. That's because I wanted kids. I wanted to be a father, and my wife wanted to be a mother, and we're both happy with that life. What Kirk and people like him fail to understand is that whenever you're trying to promote these crazy ideas, like women should just be in the kitchen, or women really is what it is. They're trying to promote like women should just be mothers by basically saying, well, what does that look like? And well, it looks like being a housewife. It looks like a mom staying home and just cooking and cleaning all day and not doing anything else. Not getting an education, not maybe finding something that drives them, some career path that they want to have. He does this. Candace Owens does this. It's It's just bullshit. And they'll try to paint it like it has the worst picture possible, like, oh, and then you're gonna find yourself 30 with and single with cats. And it's like, you know, there's plenty of women that are career driven and happily married, right? Like it's just not, the shit is not like so one sided, like they try to claim that it is.
Gets criticized and called toxic. Maybe that creates a backlash.
We're gonna run out of time. I wanted to watch like 3 videos, but I do need to stop at 5. And so before we go, I would really like to watch this. If you haven't watched this one's great. It goes on, what are we at? It's about 10 minutes, and then once this is over, we're gonna get into kind of like our closing, our normal closing spiel. We're gonna talk about some of the resources you can have to push back on this, and there's a couple new ones. I know Mom had a new one. I actually need to ask her what was the new, if she can respond. What was the new okay. If you've been online at all, you've probably seen this debate.
So I'm a feminist. My question is about the role of women, though. What should women's role in public and private life look like, and what are the material benefits of that?
Well, thank you for that. Can I take it? I don't even want to take this detour, but can we both agree on what a woman is?
Yes.
Okay. This part's funny to me because she presents him with the question, and Kirk completely deflects off into like a whole other thing that has nothing to do with what she asked.
Adult human female, it's a biological state of being that is also socially experienced. Can I please elucidate just one example of that social experience?
Yeah, I was going to answer your question, but sure, go ahead.
Yeah, okay. So let's say you're a member of a tribe, and that in that tribe, you have the biological female anatomy, and in order to become a woman in that tribe, you have to also get a tattoo. That's a social experience that's mapped onto biological reality.
So can a woman have a prostate?
Can a woman have a prostate? Biologically speaking, a woman is an adult human female that has a biological...
Okay. I think her tattoo, if you got lost there, the tattoo example is the perfect example of providing the basically the counterpoint that idiots like Kirk and Matt Walsh and Michael Knowles and all these right-wing fuckfaces love to do. They love to ask, what is a woman? And she answers it perfectly. You know, she basically, it says it in a way I think a lot of people would. It's like, well, you know, it's someone who presents, you know, external feminine traits, and they'll always deflect around it and try to find like these little skip overs. But her tattoo example is a perfect fucking example of how being a woman is like a lived experience and doesn't really have a lot to do with biology.
Biological reality. But it's also social experience, right? So I don't...
Yeah, it's super easy. Like, can a woman have a prostate?
So as per my definition of woman, I would say that people who have a prostate are biologically male, but they can sometimes be socially treated as women.
Okay, got it. So women can have prostates. Got it. Okay. So you're a feminist that actually isn't just fighting for women, you're also fighting for men.
So yes, yeah, men also...
Wow. Good job. Good job analyzing what feminism is, Kirk. You know, this is why I call this dude Charlie Cuck, because all he does all fucking day is cuck for Trump, is cuck for Christian nationalism. Yeah.
Experience harms from patriarchy, but I argue...
We're talking about the same feminism, though, just make sure. Yeah, sure, go ahead.
So men also experience harm from patriarchal domination, but I would argue that those harms come from that system of domination itself. In the same way, for example, this isn't a threat, but if I reached across and punched you in the face, then my hand might hurt, right? So are we understanding that there are, patterns of power? So I would also fight for the rights of men as a feminist, just as I would fight for the rights of women.
Sure. You think women are happier than they were 40 years ago?
Again, shifting the fucking topic. He refuses to engage with it. Why? Why does Kirk refuse to engage with these topics? And the reason why is because the second he starts to engage with it, it all falls. His entire persona, all of the things that he promotes, they fucking fall flat. They fall apart.
I think I would have a few responses to that. I think that women report more stress and dissatisfaction today because, not because they have more rights or because of feminism, but because they're under dual pressure to both excel professionally and also because of the domestic labor in homes that is structured around outdated expectations. So for example, studies like the OECD's Better Life Index show that women's life expectancy, education levels, professional achievements have risen in countries with higher gender inequality. So I would argue that what you're calling unhappiness is actually visibility, because now we hear women expressing dissatisfaction, whereas in the 50s, we prescribed them Valium and we lobotomized.
Jesus. Yeah, and again, this is the thing too, is like the second that you start to again, it's just like you have to like force, he'll never engage in good faith. We talk about that a lot in our debates. Or in our discussions, right? Is that if you're going to have a debate with someone, they have to be willing to engage with you in good faith. And Kirk won't. He won't engage in good faith because what he is promoting is not the betterment of America. It is a push into general Christian theocracy. Okay, it's a push into Christian authoritarianism. It has nothing to do with making America better and everything to do with promoting Christian nationalism. And basically putting women back in the kitchen where they belong. They don't need to be in the workforce, right? Like Candace Owen promotes this too. Like, the only reason why women were allowed to start working was because the government wanted to double tax people, right? And the reason why that shit frustrates and annoys the fuck out of me is it completely removes the agency that women have, right? Like at least Candace Owens' point. The Charlie Kirk point is basically just like a nice, prettified version of like, oh, women belong in the kitchen. They should be cooking me food, not talking to me in the workplace.
Yeah. That's really rich. I didn't know women not to complain 50 years ago. That's funny. So,
We've always been
hold on a second. Why are suicide rates going up more for women?
Again,
I think that
Forget
encourages...
complaining. Materially, women are killing themselves more. Why is that?
I think that even if both men and women have become unhappier, men's suicide rates have risen as well, and that's also been exponential. Can you at least concede that feminism offers only one potential explanation? There could be also other explanations.
Of course, obviously, but feminism is the glaring thing in front of us, where we have fertility rates down, we have marriage rates down, we have unhappiness up.
and this is I don't remember if she talks about this. It's a failure to acknowledge why those things are. And then this is what I'm talking about. It's all fucking bullshit. It's all grifting. It's all disinformation. Why? Why are people less inclined to get married? Why are they less inclined to have kids? Do you want to know why? Because they can't fucking afford it. I'm just so tired of this like right-wing mindset that like, oh yeah, like nobody's having babies anymore. Yeah, cuck, because fucking babies are expensive. I have plenty of kids. I know how expensive they could be. Okay. And whenever we were first coming up, we were lucky that it was like during the Obama era, and so there was plenty of support to help us get through the early years of my career, by being able to still provide for like me. And we only had one kid then, right? And we wanted more kids, so we had more kids. And as my income grew, as I got more valuable as a person in the Marine Corps, and especially once I got out and I had like very specialized skills, I was able to find myself in a position where I was able to provide for that family. But like, not everybody's able to fucking do that. And this idea that we should just be pumping out kids for what? For what? Right? If these people will sit here and say, oh, we shouldn't be sending money to Ukraine. It's a waste of our money, which Kirk has said himself. Well, because we need to keep it here, while offering zero fucking program, while trying to also dismantle the programs that benefit Americans. Such fucking horseshit.
And we did something in the 1960s out of the universities of Brady Friedan and Gloria Steinem and all these feminists that basically said, you're trapped in a home, go get a job, freeze your eggs, take birth control. And all of a sudden, women are way unhappier than they were 40 years ago. And I just have to ask the question, why is that? Is it working? And maybe there are biological differences between men and women that we should respect. And that deep down, a lot of women want to get married and have children. In fact, we should applaud it. And nobody's
fucking saying they can't.
support it.
So
And we should
stupid.
say it means nothing if you're going to go be a CEO of some shoe company or be some banker in London. What matters if you raise children and you have something to pass down long after you're gone.
I think I would bring 2 points to that. The first one is just really simple, which is that you can ascribe liberalism all you want as the cause of the unhappiness. I would argue something else. I would say that it's certain economic policy that has very little to do with the social acceptance of alternative lifestyles.
Wow.
I would say that we can recognize that income inequality across a vast swathe of Western countries has increased, which causes all kinds of social
Look how
ills.
fucking
a lack
nervous
of
he is. She's just like completely fucking dismantling his arguments.
social cohesion, housing price growth doesn't correspond with wage growth. Monopolies increasingly become kind of emboldened to interfere with politics, and monopolies don't prioritize social health.
I don't know who he's looking at, but he's looking like, oh fuck, buddy, get me out of here.
Either. I think that those offer more compelling reasons for a
Or maybe there's like a clock over there, and he's like, oh god, how much time do
decline in happiness than an increase in freedoms. Because just one more thing, on an intuitive basis, generally speaking, people want more freedom, not less.
Okay, so if that's true, why is it? Do you agree that the happiest women of the West are married with kids?
I would have to look into it, but
Every
I think there are
study
certain
shows, right?
there are certain
And
Oh,
objectively,
we'll say,
we know
oh
that,
yeah,
right? The women
every study says this. Okay.
with kids are not the ones tearing down statues, right?
Yeah, okay.
They're the ones that actually have obligations.
tearing down statues correspond to some kind of smiles per capita data set that I wasn't aware
I mean,
of.
Damn,
it's
God
like,
is
it's a little bit of
like it's fucking ridiculous.
one-liner. The happy and the grateful. The happy and the grateful usually don't go burn down Wendy's in their spare time, of which we saw in our country all throughout a single summer. But as a side
Oh, okay. So now again. So So tell me then, fucking cuck, was whenever the people were storming the Capitol on January 6th, were those people happy? No, they were still no, and they're still fucking not.
note, you would agree, objectively, study after study, survey after survey, that the women of the West that are married and have children, especially a lot of children, are far happier than even the ones that earn more money correlated at the same age.
So I also don't think that happiness is a very good metric, and neither do you, because you think gay people shouldn't just pursue happiness by being gay. They have other moralistic considerations to be making. So I don't think smiles per capita is a particularly convincing way to measure whether or not we should encourage women to be autonomous. I think we should maximize agency within a fair system that has reasonable parameters because it's expedient, it's good for the economy, it's logical, it's the moral thing, because if we can't prove the material harms, we shouldn't discourage it. And also, self-reported studies is a really flawed way to do psychology. It's the week before my university exams right now, and I'm standing here explaining the basic methodology behind survey collection in sociology, which you don't even think is a real subject, to Charlie Kirk. If I took one of those surveys right now, I'd check extremely miserable, but so would a Palestinian child who's been torn to smithereens. How are we going to measure?
You would say extremely miserable?
No, I'm kind of making a joke.
No, I mean, but seriously, like, but hold on. I mean, like, that's an important point, though, is that the women in the West
No, it
have
was
the
a fucking
best
joke.
in the world.
Stupid.
And yet they're way unhappier than women of sub-Saharan Africa. There's something fundamentally wrong here. Because the women of sub-Saharan Africa have something that a lot of women in the West do not have. The women in the West have cats and they have good jobs. And the women of sub-Saharan Africa.
No, and it's so fucking ridiculous. This whole fucking notion that like all women are just single and they just have cats. No, dude, there's plenty of couples and women. There's plenty of couples and women having children. It's so fucking bonkers to me how much they will continuously promote this ridiculous notion that like, oh yeah, women in the West, they're just a bunch of, you know, cat women who never want to date anyone and blah blah blah. And again, it's just because Kirk is trying to like harness the disenfranchised young men that that might be having trouble in the dating sphere, and not because they're and the reason why is because they are fucking, I'm gonna say this, they're fucking boring. The dudes that are complaining about you know, oh, I can't get any women, they're like, we'll be like, oh man, that sucks. And they're like, yeah, so but what are your hobbies, bro? I like to go to the gym. I like to you know, I like to go and buy real estate. I like to, you know, like okay, like, but what do you do on your free time? Oh, you know, I just you know, I'm all about getting that money. Like they don't have, like, they're fucking boring. They don't have any hobbies. Like, dude, like you don't like do a martial art. You don't like, I don't know, fucking do pottery, or like, you know, there's all, or like you don't like to cook. There's like so many factors that these men just don't even fucking partake in, and it's so like eye rolling. Like they're just boring as fuck, and then they're complaining that women are interested. Like, dude, you're boring.
They have a belief in the divine and they have kids. And maybe there's a biological undercurrent that is keeping a lot of women from realizing their full potential. And so without reading your phone and just like, you know, connecting,
I'm not really reading my phone.
Well, it's fine. Sure, then you can answer without it. Fair enough. Would you agree that it's a good thing that more women get married?
Please stop reading your notes that are completely dismantling my arguments and just answer my question.
And have children in the West?
I would ask you, would you say that a sub-Saharan African woman who's experienced female genital mutilation and checks extremely happy in a survey, and I also would check extremely happy in a survey, who do you think would be objectively more happy, even if they both check the same answer?
No, again, so I fully, if you want to talk about how Islam
once again, shifting the topic because you can't fucking engage.
treats women, we could talk all day long. Like, I'm all for that.
Me too.
Okay, good. So we agree. That,
Absolutely.
we actually
We
have
agree on
agreement.
many things.
Then we should shut off Muslim immigration to the UK, right? We totally agree.
Oh my
I think
god.
that all religious fundamentalism is bad, and if you take that logic, we should also not allow evangelical Christians into
Well, okay,
the UK either.
hold on. So hold on a second. Hold on. That's funny. Hold on. Can you show me a single, show me, what would your example, because I have 50, of a single Christian country that you would say mistreats women, right?
America.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
We had a female woman vice president. We had a female vice president, a female speaker.
Yeah, a female woman vice president that the fucking right wing would not shut the fuck up about. Her laugh is weird. Get the fuck out of here.
The House, women earn more than men in America.
In Rwanda, female representation in government supersedes the UK by quite a lot. Do women get treated better in Rwanda?
Okay, I might be super off this. Like, is Rwanda Islamic? Like, I'm not totally sure. I
Okay,
don't think
again.
it is. Like, is it?
Deflection.
Like, I don't know, actually. I don't. It's not. So again, we were just talking about Islam. It's a little bit of a side note. But
Again.
you must be morally clear because you brought up female genital mutilation, which is a teaching of the Islamic faith. But as a side note, like, again,
Shifting,
this
deflection.
is very important.
Shifting, deflection.
Which is, I'm not here to require you to do anything or not. I'm making a simple observation, which is objectively true regardless. The women of the West are miserable, and they're miserable for a reason. Because we've told them to suppress how they are made by God and pursue something else and get a bunch of trinkets and get a
Oh, yes. You go back to the kitchen. You are nothing but a baby factory.
bunch of promotions, and they end up at 38 years old with a big flat in London, and they're miserable. And we should tell them to stop freezing their eggs and start finding their partner earlier and have lots of babies.
Yeah, okay, I think I'd bring two just final points to this. First one is just really intuitive, right? Which is that if you actually care about women's happiness, then the solution is to structurally support them. That means universal childcare, shared legally enforceable parental leave, and in Nordic countries where women have high workforce participation and also some state support, they report higher life satisfaction than in more conservative countries, including America. So if your metric is happiness,
just use satisfaction
equality
surveys. You just told me they're
matters.
BS.
So our satisfaction surveys bullshit.
Okay, but fuck off, Charlie, because she told you she might have told you that they're BS, but then you're the one that's putting weight on them, so she's just using the same factors that you just put weight on as a counterpoint to your argument.
Because you told me
do you acknowledge satisfaction surveys or not? You just told me that they're BS. Do you think they're objective? We can use that as data?
I don't think that
yes or no?
it is the only sole data set, but it is a data set that
you told me there's a
matters.
flawed and you self-report. Okay, by the macro self-satisfaction data, I am correct, and you are right. When you have paid family leave, you are happier. I'm actually a proponent of that. At Turning Point USA, we pay for 6 months when somebody has a child. I think there's a lot of agreement we can have on that. We need to encourage having more children. I think the Hungarian child policy is phenomenal. We should look at that because the greatest thing that is plaguing the West is we're not having enough kids.
But he's not going to promote that in the United States.
And it's not just bad because we won't have a future. It's also bad because the present is awfully miserable for too many women as well.
Okay, in which case I think we get...
Start bringing this to a close, please.
Okay, I think just one final thing, which is that in which case we get to a really interesting argument about what parts of womanhood can be demarcated to the social and what kinds of womanhood can be demarcated to biological. So, for example, my anatomy is demarcated to the biological, but the fact that I might potentially be a better nurturer than a man, I would demarcate that to the social, you might demarcate that to the biological, in which case we have differing moral scales of value. I would ask why we should necessarily prioritize your moral scale of value, which prioritizes things like the birth rate, when in actual fact there are various other moral scales of value. And if you yourself are a free market American, why is it the case that you would not, like the previous speaker noted?
Because it's not about the free market. It's never been about the free market. He'll sit here and say the Turning Point USA is all about promoting the free market and limited government until it actually comes time to promote the free market and limited government. And then instead, we're going to talk about why Christianity is supposed to save America.
Extend personal freedoms towards all spheres, including a private sphere.
I believe in absolute truth claims, and it's absolutely wrong and bad when a society stops having kids to replace their own population. And then you have to import the third world, and you become the third world. It's bad.
I disagree, but thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and it's also... Okay, it's also not true. All right. Okay. So at the end of every episode, we like to always talk about what can you do. Okay. For this particular episode, one of the things that you can do is you can go check out the Unfuck America tour. Basically, the entire. I'm not sponsored by them or anything, but I do follow what they've been doing, what they're trying to do. And basically what they're doing is they're trying to take the formula that Kirk perfected, and they're trying to like re-hone it to more liberal stances. Okay, I think it's important to use the term liberal, which has been conflated to mean leftist. Those are not the same thing. A liberalism on its own is basically like minimal government interference with your day-to-day life. And it excuse me, it aligns well with capitalism, because whether or not you love or hate capitalism, capitalism is the best system we have so far, and can be even better if we properly regulate it and properly tax it. And that's what we used to do. We want to talk about how great things were in the 50s. Liberalism was everybody was all about liberalism then, right? Because we were just after World War II, we were just entering the Cold War, and pretty much everybody was against communism and everybody was against fascism, and we were all really, really warm and cozy and happy with liberalism. And it's one of those things that people like on the right love to fucking, like Charlie Kirk, they love to talk about how, oh, things were so great in the 50s, and then blame liberalism for ruining it. And that's kind of bullshit, because anyway, so check it out on the Unfuck America tour. It's basically the counterpoint to this. Moreover, midterms are coming up. If you go to like your local office or you get in contact, you can either go out and canvass directly, or you can find organizations that you can donate to or that you can provide support for. So it's definitely something that should be on people's minds. Midterms are coming up, and if we want to hopefully take America back, or at least rebalance the scale against the tyrannical administration currently sitting in the White House, then one of the best ways for us to do that is to get in the door and start canvassing, so that way we can get some more Democrat candidates, Democrat representatives back into Congress. Besides that, the usuals. 5 calls. If you're just showing up, or or you've watched the show before, we talk about 5 calls a lot. 5 calls is an app that you can get on your phone. That basically you put in where you live or your zip code, and it tells you who your representatives are. And then what you can do is you can basically like pull it up, and it's got like a list of issues that you can talk about, and it even provides you with scripts if you're not sure exactly what you want to say. And then, it's literally just you tap the button, it calls the number, somebody answers the phone, and you can just say, hi, my name is blah, 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 and then just read the script. Alternatively, I tell people this all the time, if you want to call but you don't want to talk to anybody, the office in DC is open 7 to 7 Eastern. So if you call anytime after 7 Eastern time, you'll get voicemail. If you call and get voicemail, and 5 calls reminds you of this too, it is imperative that you leave your full address, because otherwise they have no way of like whenever you call and somebody answers, it actually records your address, right? The address that's associated to your phone. If nobody's there to answer the call, the voicemail doesn't keep your address. So you have to actually tell them what your address is, and that's what makes them, basically forced to recall it, or forced to record it. So anytime you call, they have to record it. Besides that, you've got, what's the other one? Man, we have these all written down, and I'm just totally blanking. You got 5 calls. You've got ResistBot. So ResistBot is basically it's basically like a chat program that allows you to like email, or allows you to send letters, or allows you to basically contact through other means besides calling. It's a super handy tool. And again, that's resist.bot. You can even just Google ResistBot, and you'll find it. So then, besides that, so a couple other things. You check out the card campaign. So the card campaign is kind of neat. You can print out these little cards, and they have information on them, and you can just kind of leave them laying around. I know that there's like some examples where people are like, oh yeah, you can like leave it on the table for your cashier. That shit's just gonna get thrown away by the bus, but don't do that. I think some of the better places to put that are like on, like if you're going to get your breaks done, you could maybe leave it on the table in the waiting room for someone to come along. Maybe if you're out and about and you see like those little, like those little card racks, you could maybe throw them up on there. Okay. If you're out and about and maybe in the right setting, right? Maybe you're out at, some kind of rally or something else. Card Campaign has some great stuff for that. So yeah, go check them out. And there's all kinds of like, I would say interesting uses that you could do with it. Like maybe you could include them in letters whenever you mail out to people, or who knows, there's so many different ways where the Card Campaign could come into play. If you're a creative person, you could definitely find some really fun and interesting ways to use it. And we would love to hear about it too. So if you do have some interesting and fun ways, love to hear back from what people might be doing for that. Okay, besides that, you've got Indivisible and 5051. So both of those are like protest websites, like protest campaigns you can go and check out. And yeah, if you want to get involved physically, you have the time, ability, and means to do it. Those are two great websites. So it's indivisible.org and 5050.1. I want to say this again. We promote these things, but there's no, like, it's not some monetary thing. Like, we promote these things because these are the ways that you can get involved, and that's what the channel is about. It's about having the information, understanding, like, what information is probably good for you to know, and then simultaneously providing you with resources for you to get involved with it. Okay. What else? So there's a couple other ones on here. commoncause.org. You should go check this out. This, I'm pretty sure this is just this is like another protest site. So it's got, it's got protests on it. It's got information. It's got, all kinds of things, and you can come in here and take action or donate. And then, so there you go. Those are some of the resources that are at your disposal. And then besides that, we talk about it, information or action, information, and rest. Okay. There's ways that you can take action, and you should be taking action. And there's places to find the information so you can know what's going on, and you should be doing that, because a lot of times information helps you kind of, be informed and find peace. It just depends on how you're engaged with it. And then rest. Okay. The rest is the big part. Maybe we don't talk about it as much as we should, but whenever we talk about rest, it means sometimes it's okay to close Twitter or Threads or YouTube or to go and find something, right, to do that is not involved in the political sphere. And the reason why it's important is because sometimes you just got to flip the switch off, right, and not be constantly engaged in the batshit craziness that we're seeing all around us, as Mom would say. So always remember, it's okay to take a step back, and there's people out here that are caring and pushing back, and just don't lose hope. So anyways, that's it for the show. I'm a little over. Sorry again about the technical difficulties at the start of the show. I got all that fixed, but that's why the show just kind of cuts on, because I started, did the intro, was talking, no audio. Fortunately, I got it fixed, so we should be all good to go. Anyways, I will catch you all next time. Thank you so much for hanging out and listening to me solo ramble for a long time and watching some of this stuff. And I will catch you guys next Sunday.